Welcome to the HFY Codex Tale. If you like our videos, keep supporting and subscribe to our channel. The arrival at Terminal 9. The ship docked with a heavy hiss. Metal doors creaked open. Cold, recycled air rushed inside. Kyra stepped out slowly, clutching the strap of her travel bag. Her silver suit covered her entire body, arms, legs, neck, and even fingers. Only her face was visible. Her dark purple skin shimmered under the spaceport lights. She kept her head down, avoiding eye contact. This was her first time on a human-run station. And already, she felt every eye watching her. The announcement, a mechanical voice echoed from the tall ceiling. All new arrivals, report to Security Clearance Station 9 for body scans. No exceptions. Kyra froze in place. She had read about this. Full body scans for weapons, for smuggled tech, for safety. But there was one rule: no clothing allowed inside the scanner. Not even for her kind. She swallowed hard, her heart started to race. Cultural shame. On her home planet, undressing in front of others was considered shameful, a violation of soul privacy, not just body. Even in hospitals, patients were covered at all times. Kyra had never removed her suit in public, not even once. But now, a human officer was waving her forward. "Ma'am," he said, trying to sound polite. "Next, please." Eyes in the room. Kyra stepped into the glass room. Two guards stood by the scanner booth, one typing, one watching. There were no curtains, no walls, just glass. And outside, dozens of aliens, humans, and station staff walked by, pretending not to look. But they were looking. She could feel them. Whispers, soft laughter, curious stares. Her hands began to shake. The cold command. "Remove the suit," the scanner officer said without emotion. "It's required." Kyra's voice caught in her throat. "Please, I can't." "It's protocol," the officer replied. "Either you remove it or we do it by force." Her legs wobbled. Her fingers reached for the suit's collar. She felt heat rising in her face. Shame. Fear. Tears were building behind her eyes. "Please don't make me do this." The human who stepped in. Suddenly, another voice cut through the room. Strong, calm, and human. "Pause the scan." The officer looked up. "Commander Rain, this isn't your department." Rain stepped into the room. Broad-shouldered, black uniform, sharp eyes, but gentle voice. "I said pause it." Kyra looked at him, startled. He didn't look angry, he looked concerned. Rain turned to the control panel and tapped a button. The glass windows darkened instantly. Outside, the people could no longer see in. The whispers stopped. She couldn't believe it. Kyra stared in silence. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. Rain glanced back at her, but looked away quickly. "I'm not here to see anything," he said. "I'm here to make sure no one else does either." Then he turned around. He faced the wall, gave her privacy. The blush. Kyra's heart skipped. No one had ever done that for her. Not during her refugee screenings, not during the escape. Not once. She reached up with trembling fingers, slowly unlocking her suit. Metal clicked. Fabric slipped. For the first time, her skin touched the cold air. And yet, she didn't feel naked. Because someone had turned around. After the scan, when it was over, Kyra dressed fast. Her hands still shook. Rain didn't turn around until she said, "Done." He gave her a soft nod and said nothing more. But when she stepped out of the scanner room, everyone else on the station was still staring. Not at her, but at him. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. A human showed her respect. "Why, she's just another alien." But Kyra walked away, her cheeks warm, her chest fluttering. That moment would stay with her forever. Not because she was forced to undress, but because for the first time, someone looked away. The human who looked away. The station kept moving, ships landed, cargo drones buzzed through the halls, announcements echoed above the crowd. But for Kyra, time felt slower now. She sat on a metal bench near the inner docks, her silver suit zipped back up, hood resting on her shoulders. and her thoughts stayed on him. The human who didn't stare, who didn't laugh, who just turned away. Commander Rain. Whispers in the wind. She could still hear them. Soft voices around the station. Did you hear what he did? For a stranger, an alien. Maybe he was just following new orders. But there were no new orders. Everyone knew it. Rain had made a choice, and the station had noticed. Kyra tries to thank him. Later that cycle, Kyra stood outside the administrative wing. Her passcode didn't work there, but she waited anyway, hands tucked under her sleeves. When the tall human officer finally walked out of the door, she stepped forward. He saw her and paused. Kyra lowered her head slightly. I don't know your customs, but in mine, we thank with a hand over the heart. She touched her chest softly. Rain gave her a quiet nod. I just did what felt right, he said. But not everyone agreed. As Kyra turned to leave, she heard a sharp voice behind her. Another officer, tall, broad, eyes cold. Rain, he said, not looking at her, you're setting a bad example. Rain kept his tone even. She followed all protocols. Protocols don't care about feelings, the officer snapped. Then his eyes flicked to Kyra, filled with quiet disgust. Aliens don't blush like humans do, so why protect her modesty? Kyra stepped back, but Rain didn't. She wasn't blushing, Rain said calmly. She was burning with fear. The warning. That night, Rain received a system message. Your decision at Scanner Station 9 has been flagged for review. Maintain neutrality. Emotional actions affect command judgment. Rain stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. He didn't regret his choice. But now he knew. Someone was watching. Kyra can't stop remembering. In her assigned quarters, Kyra sat by the small view window, watching ships drift across the stars. She touched her suit's collar. The memory of that scanner room still made her tremble. But it wasn't the exposure that stayed in her mind. It was the sound of a human voice saying, "Pause the scan." It was the feeling of not being looked at and still being seen. Ending hook. The next day, as she walked toward the central terminal, a small boy bumped into her. He stared at her glowing eyes and said, "You're the one the human officer helped." She froze. Even the children had heard. And just beyond the corridor wall, a camera lens focused on her face. Somewhere far inside the station's control room, a voice whispered, "Find out why he protected her. Before it happens again." The cultural report. Commander Rain sat alone in his office. The lights were dim. A quiet hum filled the air. On his screen, a blank report. He stared at it for a long time. The station had asked for a justification, a reason for what he did. Why he turned his back. Why he broke the scanner protocol. Why he gave privacy to her. Most officers would have just checked a few boxes and moved on. But not Rain. He didn't just want to explain it. He wanted them to feel it. The history he found. Rain opened the Xenoculture archive. He typed in her species name, Valari. There wasn't much. They were a quiet race, peaceful, rare. But one file caught his eye, old, half-corrupted but still readable. The Valari were genetically altered during colonization wars. Their nervous systems became highly sensitive to emotion, shame, and exposure. Even slight embarrassment could trigger extreme trauma. Rain leaned back in his chair, shocked. She wasn't just uncomfortable that day. She was in real danger. He wrote it all down. His fingers moved quickly now, typing with purpose. He didn't use big words, just truth. She didn't resist. She didn't break rules. She broke down. Because our rules were made for humans, not for her. He added one final line. If respecting her feelings is weakness, then I no longer understand the meaning of strength. He sent the report. No edits. No fear. Just honesty. Kyra feels the shift. A day later, Kyra sat in the common garden of the station. She noticed it first in how people looked at her. Not with disgust, not curiosity. But caution thought. Someone even nodded at her, a soft, silent gesture of respect. Then a nurse walked by and whispered, "He stood up for you, we read it." Kyra blinked, read what? The report spreads. Rain's cultural report wasn't supposed to be public. But someone leaked it. Now it was everywhere, circulating through internal terminals, station forums, even reaching ships that hadn't docked yet. Some called him a hero. Others called him weak. And a few started asking questions about scanner policies. Not everyone is happy. That evening, Rain was called into a quiet meeting room. Inside sat Officer Bran, the same man who glared at Kyra days ago. He dropped a file on the table. "Your report made the aliens too comfortable," Bran snapped. Rain stayed calm. "They're not threats." Bran leaned closer. "They're not friends either. Don't forget which side of the scanner you stand on." Rain didn't reply. But deep inside, he knew. Bran wasn't just angry, he was scared. Kyra makes a choice. Later that night, Kyra walked to the security wing. She stood at the doorway to Rain's office, hands behind her back. "I saw your report," she said softly. "You didn't have to do that." Rain turned to her. "I know, but I wanted to." She looked down. "Your words changed how people look at me." She smiled for the first time. "But it also changed how I look at you." Ending hook. Just outside Rain's office, a silent drone hovered in the shadows. Recording. Transmitting. And on the other end of the signal, someone watched the footage closely. A whisper came through the comm. "They're getting too close. Break the bond before it spreads." The invitation. Kyra stood in front of the large metal door, heart beating fast. She had practiced her words 3 times, rehearsed them silently as she walked. But now that she was here, she wasn't sure. She raised her hand, then lowered it. Then finally, she pressed the call button. The door slid open. Commander Rain looked surprised, but only for a moment. "Kyra," he said softly, "everything okay?" She nodded, then held out a small silver card. "I've been invited to the Unity reception. They said I could bring someone." Rain looked at the card. An event hosted by diplomats, dozens of species, a chance to be seen, not just scanned. She looked down. "I don't know anyone here. I thought maybe you would come." Rain's response. He didn't answer right away. But his expression was calm and kind. "You sure it's a formal event? Lot of eyes." Kyra gave a nervous smile. "I know, but if they're watching, I want them to see I'm not alone." Rain nodded. "Then I'll be there." The reception. The Unity Hall was grand. High glass ceilings, floating lights, tables filled with food from 10 different planets. Kyra entered with Rain beside her. She wore the same suit, but her hood was off and her back was straighter than usual. People stared quietly, some with curiosity, some with surprise, and one group from the far corner with suspicion. The glove comes off. Near the refreshment table, Kyra reached for a drink. But the cup slipped from her hand and spilled slightly on her glove. Rain moved to help. "It's okay," he said. "I've got it." But Kyra shook her head. "No, let me." She slowly peeled off the soaked glove. The soft lights of the hall reflected off her bare hand, deep violet skin with glowing silver lines, like faint trails of energy running beneath. Gasps came from a few guests. One stepped back. "She's a spark touched." Rain looked at her hand, then at her face. "You okay?" Kyra nodded, even as her hand trembled slightly. "I wanted to stop hiding, just for tonight." A stranger watches. Across the hall, a man in a dark uniform pressed a small communicator. "Target confirmed. She's bonded with the human. The mark is active." The bond revealed. Later, outside on the balcony, Rain and Kyra stood together. He gently reached for her uncovered hand. "You didn't have to take the glove off." She looked up at him, eyes glowing in the starlight. "I wanted to, because the first time someone looked away, I knew I was safe." But tonight, I wanted you to see me. Rain said nothing for a moment, then quietly replied, I did, and I'm still here. Ending hook. As they stood close under the stars, her skin shimmered faintly where it touched his. The bond was real, but neither of them knew that someone had already reported it to command, and a formal order had just been sent. Break the connection, or remove them both. The setup. Kyra woke to a sharp knock at her door. 3 quick taps, then silence. Her heart jumped. She pulled on her gloves and opened the door. 2 station officers stood outside, faces cold, eyes sharp. You've been requested for a secondary health inspection, mandatory for non-Earthborn residents, one said. She blinked. But I already passed all. We won't ask twice. Taken without warning. They didn't cuff her. They didn't shout. But they moved fast, walking her through back halls of the station, far from the main medical wing. When she entered the room, she knew something was wrong. The lights were too bright, the walls too bare. And the door locked behind her. The interrogation room. A voice buzzed from above. Subject Kyra Valeri, you have been observed forming an unauthorized emotional bond with a human officer. Kyra stepped back. What is this? We need to understand if the connection is influencing command behavior, or if it's something more. Another door opened. Officer Brand stepped in, the same one who had glared at her days ago. Take off the gloves, he said. No. He stepped closer. Then we'll remove them ourselves. Rain finds out. Meanwhile, Commander Rain was reviewing station logs when something strange caught his eye. Access override, Section D12, medical hold initiated. Subject Kyra Valeri. He stood so fast his chair hit the wall. Who authorized this? No one answered. Rain stormed out of his office, heart pounding. Kyra cornered. Inside the cold room, Bran reached forward, grabbing her wrist. Let go, Kyra cried, her voice shaking. She backed into the wall. Her breath came fast, panic rising. Her skin under the glove began to glow. Bran paused. So it's true, he whispered. The bond is active, that makes you dangerous. No, I'm not. But he raised his hand again. And the door burst open. Rain steps in. Rain rushed in, weapon drawn. Step away from her. Bran froze. You're interfering with an investigation, Commander. Rain's voice was ice. You didn't file a report. You bypassed the system. This is not a scan, it's a setup. Bran sneered. She's manipulating you. You can't even see it. Rain stepped between them. I see her more clearly than any of you. The system shakes. Later, Rain filed an emergency report. Video logs, audio files, everything. And Kyra was finally allowed to leave the room. She didn't speak. But as she stood outside the medbay, she touched his arm gently. You came for me. Rain nodded. Always. But in the shadows of the hallway, another drone floated silently, recording everything. And somewhere in the command center, a voice spoke. They crossed the line. Time to make them choose. The broadcast. The recording room was quiet. Just a chair, a camera, and a blinking red light. Kyra sat alone. No makeup, no translator, no script. Only her voice and her truth. The choice. She had asked for this. After the failed interrogation, after Rain's report went viral across internal channels, Kyra made a decision. Let me speak, she had said. Not as a refugee, not as a scanned object. Let me speak as myself. Rain had simply nodded. The message begins. The light turned solid red. Kyra took a slow breath. Her fingers rested in her lap, uncovered. My name is Kyra Valeri. I come from a species that hides more than our skin. We hide our fear, our grief, our need for kindness. She looked directly into the camera. When I arrived here, I expected to be processed, measured, ignored. I did not expect anyone to stop the scanner. I did not expect anyone to turn their back. The emotion builds. She paused, her voice was steady, but her eyes were full. He didn't know my customs, but he saw my shaking hands. And he chose respect over routine. Commander Rain didn't just protect me. He gave me something no scanner could see, dignity. The bond revealed. Kyra lifted her hand toward the lens. Her skin glowed faintly, soft trails of silver light beneath the surface. Yes, we bonded, but not through power or control. Through silence, through trust, through a single moment where he looked away when everyone else stared. The station reacts. Minutes after the message aired, it spread across every screen. Civilians paused, officers listened. Even the hard-faced guards who once mocked her stood still. Some watched with folded arms, others leaned in, not blinking. "She's not weak," one whispered. "She's brave." But not all were moved. In the highest room of the station, a command director slammed a fist on the table. She exposed everything. The scanner policies, the emotional link. Now every alien will demand the same. An aide asked softly, "Should we block the feed?" The director's eyes narrowed. Too late, it's spreading beyond this station. The only option now is separation. Rain's decision. Later, Rain found Kyra in the observation dome. She stood quietly, watching the stars. "They won't let us stay together," he said. She nodded. "Then let's not stay. Let's go somewhere they don't decide how we're allowed to feel." He looked at her, truly looked. "You're not a file to be processed. You're the first person who made me believe again." Ending hook. As they stood in the dome, hands just barely touching, a message came through Rain's personal comm. "You have been reassigned. Transport in 12 hours. Final warning, break the bond or surrender your rank." Rain looked at Kyra and said only one thing. "Then they can keep the rank." The hand she offered. The shuttle bay was quiet. Too quiet. Kyra stood at the edge of the loading ramp, her silver travel bag resting by her feet. The transport ship's engines hummed low, waiting. The guards nearby avoided eye contact. She had been ordered to leave. To relocate peacefully, to cooperate. To disappear. But her eyes weren't on the ship. They were on the man running toward her from across the bay. Rain arrives. Commander Rain, no longer in uniform, moved fast, a small satchel slung over his shoulder. His rank badge gone. His face calm but firm. He didn't slow down until he reached her. "You waited," he said, breath short. Kyra smiled softly. "I didn't want to go without offering one last thing." She turned her body slightly and reached out her bare hand. No gloves, no shame. Just skin, glowing softly, warm in the shuttle light. "This is how we seal trust among my people," she whispered. He takes her hand. Rain didn't hesitate. He reached out and took her hand gently, folding his fingers around hers. The glow spread across both palms. A soft pulse of energy moved between them. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a weapon. It was acceptance. And in that moment, the bond became complete. The watchers, high above in the command center, a silent alert blinked. "Unauthorized connection confirmed. Subject Rain has resigned." Bond verified, no action taken. Another officer leaned back. "So we're just going to let them go." The director closed the file. "We already tried to break them. Let the galaxy see what happens when humans bond with those they're taught to fear." A new beginning. As the ship lifted off, Kyra and Rain sat together in the quiet passenger cabin. Outside the window, the station grew smaller and then vanished into the stars. He looked at her, still holding her hand. "Where do we go now?" She smiled. "Anywhere we can walk side by side and never look away." Epilogue, a story retold. Years later, on a different station, a teacher stood before a group of young cadets. Behind her glowed an image of a human and an alien hand in hand, eyes forward. "This," she said, "was the moment everything began to change. Not with a battle, but with a hand that was offered, and one that chose to hold it." White heavy check mark the end.